Today is a video about how news can help you, but on the other hand, how news can be detrimental to your trading. Now, these are, today I've got examples showing you exactly one that is going to benefit your trading, and then also an example that news will be detrimental to your trading. Now, both of these examples are not examples of trading the news specifically, but being in a trade before or well before the news happens, and you are either managing your trade or you are just viewing your trade as hit and take profit or stop loss. Okay, and this can coincide with you wanting to close, just being considerate about having an idea of when trades, when you're in a trade, when the news is, at what time it is, what type of news is it, red folder, orange folder, yellow folder. As you know, I'm Forex Factory. I use Forex Factory for my news events. And so this is not examples of trading the news, but primarily of just being in a trade when news happens. Okay, and I'll show you an example of beneficially. So it's benefiting your trade, and one of being detrimental to your trade. Okay, so first of all, let's start off with the being detrimental. Let's get that fucking out of the way first. So this was a trade that I was actually in. This was a trade that I called out in the Discord. So let's just quickly go through this trade right here, right now. So this was on EU, and what we saw on the morning, I believe this was yesterday. So yesterday morning, what we saw was this demand zone. We were bullish ever since we broke these highs here, and we broke and closed above on the 9 o'clock candle, right, or 8:55 candle right there. So on the 8:55 candle, we were confirmed that we were bullish. We moved to the upside, and from this area right here that I'm marking out, we had a big impulsive move. We then retraced back into the demand area, and as you know, I like to take my entries on the break of the high with my stop loss firmly below the area. Now, as I do advise, taking a 1-to-1 as your first take profit, or allowing it to actually see a 1-to-1 hit, you would have been all right. However, if you are holding runners to a, for example, to a 1-to-2, you can see that eventually it did get hit. However, news came. Now, this is exactly the problem that I was dealing with here. Now, in this, let me just move this out of the way. So now in this area, this is when ADP happened. So ADP in the New York session, as you saw, we took the trading London session with a lot of time left, and this was going very nicely to the TP of the second TP. Okay, so if you didn't take partials at your 1-to-1, which was around here, and you left to take to a full TP at the second TPZ, at the second TP zone, then you would have had to be dealing with this scenario right here, which I'm going to show you now, which is exactly what I was dealing with as well. So as you can see here, these candles leading up to the ADP, which had a massive spike down, you can see that if I just draw this across, you would have got it fully stopped out for a -1R if you were risking 1%, -1, etc, etc. Now, what could you have done in this scenario? There are two things that you could have done in this scenario. So in this scenario, because basically, as we know, retail traders, it's normally a 50-50 gamble unless you subscribe to, you know, a big information source, or if you really study news. But I'm partially, or most predominantly, a technical trader, and I do keep an eye on news. I just don't really want to take the ins and outs of news. It's not necessary for me. You make enough money by just doing technicals. You just have to be aware of these news events. So let me show you two ways to go about this. So the first thing to go about would be, let me just put the entry in again. The first thing to go about here would definitely be the management. Now, the management of the trade would be when you have a low. So for example, this was your full risk right here at the bottom of the supply demand zone. And as you were seeing this take off to the upside, you would have been trailing your stop. And that's where you would have left your stop. And you maybe would have got taken out here due to spread. However, I did not. And therefore, I was fully expecting this to then at least go and hit your TP. Which was not actually there, which was much higher up there. Now, ADP happened, and I got stopped out nearly at break even, slightly less due to spread and volatility. So let's just be conservative and say I got stopped out roughly around about there. So I was no longer risking my full 1% on this trade, which would have been there, which would have actually got stopped out as well. So, and then add more spread on. You're talking about possibly a 2% loss just because of spread, especially on a funded account. So I managed my risk to a... Why is that coming up, bruv? So I managed my risk to a basically just under break even. Okay, so I had minimal risk on the table left, and that is one way of doing it. So here on the beneficial, it was on a GJ. And what I want to show you is how I had these charts marked up the other day. This was the other day, by the way. And let me just quickly mark out the breakup structure that I was looking for. So we had this wick right here, and this led into the London session right here, where we had this very, very, very nice breakup structure with volume, impulsive to the upside, closure above all the highs. And basically this made our demand zone right here. Now we draw this out in time. I did review this trade before, however we're just going over the news events. Now I was in the trade right there. I did get executed on this candle, and I believe the news was on this candle right here, this big bullish candle right here. Therefore I was in about 15 minutes before the actual news event happened. Now this is beneficial to your trade, because this then went and hit your full TP. Well, TP1 would have been a 1-to-1, and TP2 would have been a 1-to-2. Now this did go and get hit a 1-to-2 in the first 5-10 minutes. 10-minute candles, 2 5-minute candles making it up a 10-minute trade, and straight to your second TP. Now if you had a third TP, which would have been a 1-to-3, that also would have got hit as well, with also inside the 2 5-minute candles, possibly even a 15-minute trade. So that overall is the beneficial part of trading with news, being inside a trade when news is happening, or when news is slowly coming to the time where news is going to be announced. In this case, it was this candle here, so I was in 15 minutes before, fully knowing there was news. I was managing my risk at this point. My stops were actually, I believe, because news came on this candle, I believe my stops were below this candle right here, so I was risking minimal percentage on this trade when the news event happened. I was nicely in profit as well from this trade here. This was a 1-to-1, I believe, around about here, so I had my first partial out as well. However, I don't see the logic going to break even. A lot of traders go to break even primarily due to the fact that they don't want to risk anymore. However, I don't see the logic in that. I see the logic of trailing your stops for a reason of, for example, news. Right, so an event that you cannot kind of, how would I say this? An event that you cannot analyze, unless obviously you're a fundamental trader, then yes, but we are technical traders right here. So that is the beneficial and the detrimental part of news to your trading strategies and your trading techniques, etc., etc. Holding through the news and getting out before the news, because even if this candle happened here, let's say we were being conservative and we were getting out before the news, I would have already taken my partials, stops just below the low here, so managing my risk, risking minimal amount of percentage. And let's say if I didn't want to be holding, I'd just get out. I'd get out on the closure of this candle, and let's say how much would have that been right there? So a 1 to 1.5, okay, and then I also had my stop below there. So there you go.